Almost. Major. Holy fucking shit, this is major!
Being that we're talking about Startup.com, a documentary about the early .com boom and the bubble bursting of the .com. We've talked about the internet a few times on this podcast, but never just this specific type of internet. I mean, I guess kind of with Strangeland, but regardless, I want to know what everybody remembers about the internet at this time. I definitely remember, let's put it in the frame of like 2000, 2001. Some anecdotes I remember. I do remember Adult Swim had just come out, and I was like so perplexed by what the fuck that was. And I was trying to not even Google it. I don't even know what I used at the time, but I couldn't spell adult because I was like fucking like 8 or something like that. I remember going up to my mom and I'd be like, "Hey mom, can you just spell adult?" And looking down, and she just goes, "Why do you need to know that?" And I go, "Oh, it's a Cartoon Network. It's called Adult Swim." And she goes, "Ask your brother." So like stuff like that. Going to like South Park wallpaper pages to download cool new wallpaper where it's like Cartman as Neo in the Matrix. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put that on the family computer wallpaper, man. And my parents liked me most at the time because when I got on the computer, I only wanted to play a Rugrats game. I didn't want to get on the internet. So because back then, if you got on the internet, you couldn't be on the phone. So they're just like, oh yeah, we like when you get on because we can still be on the phone. But my older brother was like chatting on like MSN Messenger and going to like the gauntlet.com, which was an early new metal website. But yeah, Charlie, early internet.
Yeah, I specifically remember there were like during the days of AIM or AIM, however you want to pronounce it. Just like Friday nights, like when that was a new thing and we were just like, no, I got to spend my night here. Just messaging people you just spent like 8 hours with in school and just having the most boring, like just didactic conversations. Hey, what's up with like the, shift 6 key, like for up, NMU. NM, like, wow, I'm being social. Like, because we weren't allowed out back then. Like, to go.
I just ate dinner. Same.
Yeah.
And you were just like, man, this Friday night is popping off.
Yeah. My sister's like, come watch Titanic with me. No, I'm far too busy. Like, yeah.
Or you'd get on and be like, the person you want to talk to has been away for like 3 hours, and you're like, maybe they'll come back. And then when eventually they come back, you'd message them, and then they'd sign off.
Sorry, I'm messaging someone with a BRB away message, and their profile is lyrics from, I don't know, a My Chemical Romance song or something. Like, yeah, that was like their info.
She Hates Me by fucking Puddle of Mud. Yeah.
If there's one thing I truly miss from the early aughts, though, and it has kind of come back, and there is a lot of nostalgia for it. Do any of you remember HomestarRunner.com?
Oh, yes. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Homestar Runner was my shit. That website, I mean, it was initially about the titular character Homestar Runner, who's like basically a guy who's like pale white with very long legs and a red shirt with a star on it. But ultimately, the thing of the week used to be Strong Bad emails, where you could email this fictional character named Strong Bad, who kind of looked like a shirtless Power Ranger with boxing gloves on. And he would actually, like, it would go into like complete surrealist, almost Dada like humor about like, what would your cartoon be like? And he'd be like, oh, well, my cartoon would be like about a cow, and it would be, the protagonist would be like a cow mixed with a helicopter, and then I'd be in it, but my head would be a keyboard, and when I get mad, I play the demo. And you like, it's all inside joke humor, but it made total sense if you were into the lore of it. And it was just, it was awesome. And it wasn't even like adults could like it, but kids could like it, and it wasn't too inappropriate. Like, I think the edgiest thing is that, like, he'd be like, there would be beer jokes or something like that, or like, you know, there would be a
man.
character named the Poopsmith or something. But like,
Oh Jesus!
but like, even got my dad into this, and then of course I'd go to middle school, and whenever we had like computer class, we'd, you know, finish whatever assignment we had, so we could secretly log on to like whatever Homestar Runner was doing.
Well, then you get on there and it'd be like, this website you cannot access, and you're like, fuck. You're
They
like,
didn't
had
discover
to
that
find-
one yet. I was in a generation where they
Ah.
didn't have that yet. I was also in a weird generation where I was allowed to listen to my classic iPod taking like tests and shit. I remember there was one time I was allowed to listen to my iPod Classic while taking a Spanish test, and I knew I was failing, and I immediately put on Bright Eyes and just started like like silently, like eternally sobbing, just being like, yep, this is not gonna go well, but at least I can listen to Bright Eyes while I do this. So.
Oh no, early classrooms was definitely either you had a teacher that was cool with it, but more than likely you weren't. So when you had a substitute, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, Miss So and So lets us listen to music whenever we do our thing." And they're like, "Is that true?" And they're like, "Yeah." That was pretty much the height of that, was getting a substitute to not care enough that you could listen to music while, you know.
My proudest achievement was when I had a drama class where we had to do meditations. And my drama teacher liked everything on my iPod so much that she asked for my iPod for like meditational study. And then asked for me to burn her CDs of like Sigur Rós and Damien Rice and stuff like that. Or I was just goodness. Like, that was my ultimate teacher's pet moment where I was just like, I don't even care. This rules. Like,
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just early internet where, I mean, I mainly miss forums. Like Reddit is kind of like the forum 2.0 kind of thing, but I just miss being on forums and all the I would spend all fucking day on like horror movie forums, and yeah, I miss that. But it's probably the same thing now. It's just I've probably aged out of it. I do remember when I was on a horror movie forum back in the day, and people would write reviews on like a certain type of this forum, and I just plagiarized like 5 different reviews and put it together, and then they found out about it and banned me. So that was my first spat with journalists.
Did you ever have a live journal or a Zynga?
Nah. I had a Zynga, yes.
I definitely had a live journal where I was like, I found some forum that was like a movie related forum, and I just like spammed it with like my dumb 13-year-old taste, and it was like this, like, I don't know, person in their 20s who was actually trying to be taken seriously, and I was just like, have you all seen The Forgotten? What a weird movie. And they're like, we don't care about this Julian Moore fucking disaster.
It would be the thing where I would lie about how old I was, and they'd be like, you're lying, we can tell. It was just like, what are you talking about? No, it's just like it's like yeah, you gave oh goodness, what would be a movie? Yeah, like The Forgotten is like, you gave that a 9 out of 10 because you said it wasn't that good but still enjoyable. It's like, you're obviously 12. And I'm like, no, I'm 18.
Bryden, what were your experiences like
with the early internet? I think it's a little bit later than the era of this movie that we're going to be talking about, because I think I started using the internet around like 2005, and I just basically remember, what do I remember from that? I remember just Googling. I remember like first testing out Google. It's like, wait, if you type this into like the search bar, like it'll like, you'll find pictures of this. Like it's just like, and I just remember being like kind of stunned by that. And then also,
Bryden, what were you searching images of? You find images of this?
Well, I think it was also just like movies. Like that was like probably what I was looking at. Also, like I don't know. I mean,
going to movies.itunes.com or whatever. Like that's where you watched all the movie trailers back in the day. Up until still like in high school, before YouTube really kicked off.
I remember when I was like in 4th grade or something. There was the app that came on like MacBook computers called Front Row or something, where like you clicked on like a little red movie chair and it would take you into like this scroll down menu of like all the movie trailers. I was like, ooh, what's this?
I remember that.
Yeah. But I don't know. I also remember using like using the computer for like internet games on like Newgrounds and stuff like that. And
of course.
that led me to some stuff that maybe I probably shouldn't have been playing at the time. Definitely was like some stuff that I would be like, okay, like is anyone around? All right, just gonna like type.
Just gonna play Alien Hominoid. I'm gonna play that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding when I say that. I mean, you can't access this anymore, nor would you be able to unless you work at this establishment. But we have before the renovation started, where I work at the Coolidge Corner Theater, there was like you can walk up this emergency exit staircase and like up to the roof. It's not secure at all, but I found something that was "All Your Base or Belong to Us" spray painted on the
my
top
goodness.
of which I was just
Wow.
like, Jesus, that takes me back. Do you or either? Yeah, Kevin, you're aware of this. Do you know of this?
Oh
Brian?
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that they may have like RIP'd that after a while because there's just like too many people. It would be like if somebody spray painted the dancing baby from Ally McBeal, like the first GIF ever or something like that.
Oh, I mean LimeWire. That was like a big thing that I remember.
Oh, of course. I do remember having like friends over and it would just be like, look at this 20-second clip I downloaded from South Park that took me like 3 hours to download. It would be the worst quality ever.
Oh, yeah.
Or downloading cam rips in like 2 parts that are like this big on the fucking computer on the CRT, like watching I watched a work print of the remake of Willard on LimeWire. I remember that. And it was like the R-rated version before they cut it down and they never released the R-rated version. Yeah, man.
No,
Whoa, this connects to our earlier conversation, right?
I watched movies like that on my classic iPod, which was like...
Oh, I did too.
It's crazy. Like, and I use LimeWire for the same things. They only occasionally gave my family computer a virus where I was just like, I want this song by him, and then it would be like, oh dear, delete. Like, oh, here it is.
Exe. Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Like,
I do remember like having to go to bed at a certain time, but having episodes of Californication on my iPod Classic and watching those in bed. Or like I remember like the Sunday after Superbad came out, I was like, where's the cam rip? I gotta watch that. So I like stayed up until like 1 a.m. until it leaked and put it on my iPod Classic and watched it.
I think the only cam rip I watched and then I never did it again was Hannibal Rising. I don't know why. I was like, it came out around the time I was finally allowed to watch those movies, and I was just like, I have to know, because I was too young to be able to see it in theaters, and my parents don't even like Silence of the Lambs, so this is the way. And then I was just like, oh well, this sucks, but the movie also is okay, yeah, that's fine.
It was the thing. I was 11 or 12, and the fact that I could download movies, it was like I didn't care what it looked like. The fact that I had it was incredible. Did I download a cam rip of Swim Fan, and like every single one I downloaded would corrupt at 15 minutes in, and I was pissed off, and I had to wait until the DVD came out to finally watch it? Yes, that happened.
Wait, Swim Fan is like 2002. You were no, really? Oh my god, you were.
Yeah,
you were
I remember
into the
seeing
game.
that. Yeah, I remember seeing that trailer was Stupefied by Disturbed, and I was just like, I cannot wait, and like trying to pressure my brother, and he's like, I don't want to see that. That looks dumb, and I'm like, please, we have to go see it. I remember the date the DVD was going to come out, and I was like anticipating it, and I watched it. I was like, did not disappoint. Yes, 10 out of 10. Welcome to Almost Major, a podcast where we talk about many major studios and the films they released. We are still on Artisan, and today we are talking about Startup.com, a documentary that released May 11th, 2001 in the US. My name is Kevin Tudor. I'm here with Bryden Doyle.
Hello.
And Charlie Nash.
Hello.
Like I said, we were talking about Startup.com. This also premiered at Sundance, January 2001. It opened May 11th, like I said, in one theater and expanded up to 50 theaters. Opening weekend, it made $16,000, a domestic gross of $1.2 million, and an overall gross of $1.8 million. Now, this came out about 3 weeks after Center of the World, so some of these top 5 movies have an overlap, but top 5 films this week in the box office was The Mummy Returns, A Knight's Tale, Bridget Jones' Diary, Along Came a Spider, so both of those are the same, which the fact that this is the 6th week that Along Came a Spider is out and it's still number 4 at the box office, that's pretty wild. And Driven, I believe, the Stallone driving movie. Yeah,
it's Rennie Harlan who directed that, if I'm
That's
mistaken.
right. That's right, yeah.
The Mummy Returns I watched over and over and over again, but I don't think I've seen that movie in like 20 years.
I remember, wasn't there like an animated Mummy special?
I think there was. I never saw it.
I think I remember renting that in maybe Mummy Returns or Scorpion King at the same time. I do not remember.
I definitely watched The Scorpion King more than once.
I found this here, Kevin. It says The Mummy, also known as The Mummy the Animated Series, is an American animated series produced by Universal Cartoon Studios based on the 1999 film of the same name. It was on Kids WB. Premiered on September 2001. And it was retooled and renamed The Mummy Secrets of the Magi for a second and final season, which began on 2003. Then it was canceled.
I want to know what this is. This is what it was. It was The Mummy Quest for the Lost Scrolls, the feature-length adventure. If you can see that.
Oh, I can't.
Yeah.
Oh my god. What?
Yeah. Yeah, but apparently, the whole series is on DVD. It lasted two fucking years. Holy shit. But only 2 seasons, so 26 episodes. But regardless, that's pretty wild.
And it's the same cast that's like used in the series that's in this little movie too. So
I'm sure it's just like retooled episodes that they made into a movie.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Number 1 songs this week are the same as the last episode. Janet Jackson was reigning supreme for a while. Startup.com examines the current troubled state of the internet revolution. Well, it's not really current anymore, but in which inflated ideals and dreams of instant wealth have been supplanted by harsh economical realities and broken promises, graced with sensitive storytelling and a dynamic, intimate cinema verite style. The film also manages to personalize this crisis with intensely private views of the people involved. Google just hitting that word count. Directed by Jan Nujami. Is that what we said it was?
Jahan Nujem, I think, is how it was pronounced in a video that I looked up from Film at Lincoln Center where she was giving a talk.
Right. Directed by Jahan Nujem. Directed by Jahan Nujem. Prior to this, there was nothing prior to this. This is her first documentary. After this, she did Control Room in 2004 and The Great Hack in 2019. It's also co-directed by Chris Hedges. Chris Hedges. Prior to this, she did The War Room in 1993 and Jimmy Plays Monteria in 1986. After this, Unlocking the Cage in 2016. She was also married to D.A. Pennebaker, so that's how The War Room is also co-directed by him as well. Before we get in, there's no really starring. There's 2 people involved, which I'll get into once we get into the plot. Khalil and what's the other guy's name? Tom.
Yeah, Tom Herman.
Yeah. Involves Khalil and Tom, and we'll get more into it in a little bit. But quick trivia, this was edited down from over 400 hours of footage, so that must have been fun. Khalil Tusman was convicted of fraud in 2015 based on fraudulent accounting practices for a separate company after these events. That's fun. Nujem, the videographer and producer and director, began the project when she was the roommate of a documentary principal character, Khalil. She was previously a producer at MTV, so she was roommates with the guy, and then I guess that's how it all started. The competitor, who is donning the GovWorks.com cap, Brian R. Mundy of EasyGov.com, died in a house fire 6 days before the movie premiered at Sundance. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
he seems like a nice guy in the movie. I mean, like he's just like saying, I don't know what I did to freak everyone out. Why is everyone being so suspicious of me? And then like he tries to wear hats.
Yeah.
We have a new CEO. He has recently left Goldman Sachs.
I've known Tom since we were 15. I love him. He and I have built this company together.
Thank you, Khalil, for leading us here. The cash alone is a sum of money that I wouldn't know what to do with.
You got, I think, $15 million from the Mayfield Fund. Are you looking for another round anytime soon?
Can't believe that you came in here just out of your goodwill and curiosity.
You gotta get to know me then.
They're using our language They're using our ideas.
Khalil Tuzman, the co-founder and CEO of GovWorks.com.
Speedo swears that he handed him like a business card.
I told him that he should consider a job with us.
A record-setting bad day on Wall Street Friday, the 14th of April, 2000.
We're fixing it because there are problems, because it's not going to do everything that we want it to do for the future.
Our site is not as good as our competitor's site. If we're co-CEOs, then we're co-CEOs.
As they try to consolidate leadership, I become more and more of a problem. This letter is a request for termination.
He doesn't trust me. He doesn't trust me.
Initial thoughts, I'll go. It's all right, I guess. It's what is it? It's like an hour 45, and it definitely starts to drag at points. But what I really enjoy is like the start and the end. The start of just like really getting to know these two guys and what they're trying to do, and like there's a really great scene when they're at like a food place and they're just asking people like, what would you think of a website called GovWorks? Okay, but what would you think about if it was called this? And they're just like, okay, but say I'm talking to you right now and I'm like, hey, what do you do? Oh, I work for GovWorks. And they're like, what is that? But what if we said, oh, I work for this place? Now, what would you think of that type of thing? I thought that was pretty neat. And then the ending where it just shows the everything just falling about GovWorks and everybody leaving and whatnot. I kind of like that as well. But I mean, I do like that it's all footage from this and it's not like a talking head documentary and whatnot. So it's like the dot-com bubble is actually happening during the making of this. So that's really nice to see that. But I feel like they don't nail that down enough, just like how big of a deal that is. It's just the guys are not very interesting enough to really follow, but the idea of it I'm kind of down for. But yeah, it was perfectly whatever, right down the middle. But I also do like that it was shot on video, so that gives it a little bit of an edge. But Bryden, what did you think?
Yeah, so I think I like this a little bit better than both of you. That's totally fine. I do think it takes a little while to get going. There's like some stuff at the beginning that the movie's trying to do where like it is kind of like this jokiness where they're talking about like all the different kinds of licenses that you can have, and then like there's these kind of like punchlines that they try to have in the editing where like they're saying you can like go to a town hall meeting, and you see footage of a town hall meeting, and then like there's like a delayed sort of punchline that says you can go to a town hall meeting without your pants on or something, and it's just like kind of like a weird like sort of the way it's edited where like text is like sort of scrolling across the screen at like a very deliberate pace to set up these punchlines. It's like one thing that they do that like they never use in the rest of the movie, and it's like just kind of it kind of feels out of place in the rest of the movie. And some of the montages with like the music, like there's like some of the lyric choices are really there's like I'm looking, there was like a montage of them going to meetings and the lyrics are literally money, that's what I want, and it's like okay, like
that like, weird cover of that song.
So some of those on the nose touches are a little annoying, but I do think the movie does really get going when it gets into sort of like it almost like takes on like sort of a cringe comedy vibe where like the Khalil Tuzman and Tom Herman are just like getting themselves into these situations that they sort of like become very flustered by because they don't really know what they're doing. I mean, the scene like, and I think it's like how it's filmed too and edited, where like these like nice little tense set pieces where like you're just kind of thinking, oh my gosh, they're gonna like say and do the wrong thing. Like that meeting when they go to where is it? They're at a boardroom and they're trying to get like funding, and they have like the papers for like signing the terms, and they want to get a hold of their lawyer. And they only have like an hour to sign the papers, but they can't get a hold of their lawyer because they get a hold of the receptionist, and like the movie like it's like cutting between like them like freaking out and like Khalil's like, oh, my computer blew up and everything. And then like it's cutting between that and like the clock ticking, and then at one point like Tom Herman is like saying, oh well, I'm worried about these guys going to be nice, they're going to like screw us later on. And just as he's finishing out that complaint, it cuts to like the guy who they're about to meet with like walking into the room, and it's like, oh my gosh, like they're kind of blowing it and everything. But it's so I really like that, and the whole bit too where the third founder that they bring in who's not showing up to meetings, there's like a whole scene where they're trying to like offer him like good prices like to buy him out, and you're mostly just listening to their half of the conversation, and you can tell by like the long pauses that the negotiation's not going well, or like just saying, why can't we like meet down the middle? And then like there's like a long pause, and it's like, okay, you want 800,000? Why can't we meet down the middle? And then there's like a long pause, and it's like, okay, we'll give you $700,000. And it made me think of the scene from when I was like going over my notes. It made me think of the scene in Bad Santa where they're negotiating with Bernie Mac. They're saying like, all right, we'll offer you like a third. It's like half. All right, 35%. I mean half. It's so funny. But yeah, so the movie's really good with that kind of it has a lot of those kind of scenes that I really like. I think ultimately the message that it goes towards at the end, where it's like, turns out you should like value friendships over business and everything, business matters and anything. It's like, I found that a little bit trite, and like, especially like, you know, the idea of like them like driving away from the business and like they're driving out into the wilderness, you know, getting away from the city and the technology and everything. It's like, okay, that's like a little corny to me, but overall I did like it, and I do think it's a pretty, like you said, like, you know, it's edited down from so much footage, and potentially the subject matter could be very dry, but I think the way it's all cut together, it is, there is an immediacy from the DV camera work, and also like the way the punchiness of the editing really does like make for like a series of really compelling like set pieces as they're just like, as their company's like slowly imploding. But yeah, no, I thought this was totally solid. I don't love this movie, but I thought it was like perfectly engaging for like the runtime.
Right. And we said on our 24-hour woman episode that that was the only woman directed movie that we're going to cover, but I guess I just didn't look who the directors were of this so I didn't know. But yeah, both the directors of this are women, so we got 3. Yay. Yeah. Out of like 35. But Charlie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle with, yeah, like I'm more on your side, I guess, Kevin. I thought it was fine. I think, like Center of the World, it must have been a fascinating film to see during the time of its release, because I'm just gonna lay my cards on the table. I'm not smart when it comes to this type of stuff with the internet and like business protocols and stuff like that. I did think it was interesting, as you said, Bryden, as like a cringe comedy about, you know, balancing personal relationships with business. There's also something going on with the way that these two men and their relationship matter to each other and how they shut all the women out. I mean, it's interesting to me. I mean, I couldn't help but think of this and how Tom has, you know, I'm assuming that his wife is not white, because the daughter that, do we know if it was like
I think there's a scene where you see his wife or girlfriend or something like that. Yeah, but I forget, because
it starts with him like combing his daughter's hair, and the daughter's like crying, and he's kind of like,
she's giving a great performance. She's really upset.
She is. and I had a weird mixed thing to this where it was like, well, she's too young to like understand what consent is for this, but also like it makes the point of the movie where it's like, life is hard and you're just gonna have to deal with this. But like it was a weird thing where all of the footage of his daughter is kind of just her being upset in a way that kind of upset me.
Well, what's interesting to me is like, it seems like that's almost like he's like talking about like, well, life is tough, babe, I think is one of the lines that he has. And it almost seems like, especially when you hear like how much Khalil Tasman is talking throughout the movie, where he's like talking about being a hard ass and everything, it makes you think like this is maybe an attitude that's rubbed off on Tom Herman. And then like by the end of the movie, he's like, I'm not that guy. I don't want to be that guy. I
don't want to be that guy at all. And it's also interesting. I mean, I could not help but think about, and I say this as a white person, there's all sorts of things about race in this movie that aren't even being commented on that are like kind of interesting to me, where he's the one being like, life is hard, and then, you know, all these scenes of like him disappointing his daughter, whether it's brushing her hair or telling her she's not going to be there for the job, and then he gets let go, and then also by Khalil, or I'm so sorry, I'm butchering his name, just like Khalil. Just like the white guy who's like, I don't know how to pronounce this. Khalil. I thought certain things like that were interesting. I don't understand, like, and this is just my own stupidity. This is not the movie's fault. I don't understand the way like economics worked in terms of the internet and startup businesses during this time. And even, I mean, we talked about this a little bit, where I was just kind of like, what does the job deal with exactly? Like, parking I don't tickets, fully understand what this deals with, but I do think that it is an interesting portrait of these two people who are entrepreneurs entrepreneurs who are so invested in this idea. And I mean, Kaleo like left Goldman Sachs to pursue this, which I think is something that is like even more like that was notable back then, and now even with what we know about Goldman Sachs now, like it's just like, oh wow,
Oh, yeah.
even back then, holy shit. And I do think the documentary does make an interesting point of, as you mentioned, Bryden, it's not a film with it introduces that kind of stuff with the text of like, what if you could do this and that, and then that doesn't really get followed through. It isn't it's interesting how it doesn't really provide a cohesive narrative through line in terms of like trying to be biased. Obviously all documentaries are biased. Whatever story you're telling, you're going to be telling it through some sort of lens, but it is trying to be as factual as possible. And I couldn't help but think of, I don't know if this is true, but it felt like they were starting to make one movie and then it ended up being a completely different movie and not the one they were intentionally trying to, like, I don't think that the people making this movie were like, we're going to watch these two people fail. You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of fascinating to watch. But I do think that the interpersonal relationships that they have with each other, first with the women and then with each other, like that was the stuff that interested me most, as opposed to like these business meetings where I'm just going to leave I'm just going to admit it. Like, I didn't fully understand what the economical or business standpoints were for every conversation they were having. I've also had a weird week, so I just want to mention that right out of the blue. Like, it was hard for me to focus on this stuff due to having a weird week, and I apologize if I ever seem stupid in this episode, but I did think that the interpersonal drama was what kind of hooked me and kept me engaged throughout. Wouldn't say this is something that I personally enjoyed watching at this moment in time, but as a time capsule, if you wanted to see how things were and how things are now, they're both different and not so different, if that makes any sense. Which
especially with Silicon Valley, not a lot has changed now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely just, I mean, one of the directors was roommates with Khalil, and it was just like, oh yeah, you're gonna start up this thing, yeah, sure. And then it becomes more about the .com bubble, which all of that happens, and so many .coms around that time are just trying so much, and they're putting so much venture capital into anything that has a .com at the end of it, until eventually just everything dies. Like, and then then it shows that, and then it becomes a movie about friends falling apart because of that and all of that. But yeah, it's a thing of, it didn't matter what they were doing. The fact that they were working on a website that was bound to be making money was enough for them to get the foot in the door. And then that was the reason why the .com bubble eventually happened, was just giving out money to anything, because people didn't understand that, just because it's on the internet and something new, it doesn't mean it's going to last. So it does delve into that. It's just not as much as I wish, but also, like I said, it's not a documentary a few years down the road that's going to be talking about the .com bubble. It's just like they knew as much as what was happening at the time. 20 years later, we could do it a lot differently, of course, because we have a lot more information about the .com bubble now. But yeah, go into didn't really find a actual plot description, but we'll fill into it, but just more on what the basic plot outline was. But Khalil Tussman and Tom Herman have had a dream since they became friends at the age of 15: get rich by developing their own .com company in some aspects of computer technology interface. Now in their late 20s, they have now come up with the idea they believe to make them riches, namely, as Tom refers to it, parking tickets. The company will be the online revenue collection interface for municipal governments. GovWorks.com came into existence in May 1999 with only an idea. The process of building the business focuses on obtaining venture capital based solely on the idea, with the actual mechanics of the website seemingly almost an afterthought, or at least one left primarily to the hired help. Which it gets into this in the movie where they're just like, the website isn't working, how is it not going to work? And it's just like, oh yeah, you didn't even think about like if the website would work, like the main thing that you should be thinking about. And
it's so funny. Yeah, when they're trying to like look up the ask functionality or something like that, like they're saying like, oh yeah, when we type in park, we get like the names of we get the results of like someone's name park, not in like parking tickets. And it's like, all right, well, why don't we type in like alternately, we'll type in speed. It's like, damn it, brings up like Dr. Steven Speed or something like that.
Or you were just like, we were looking up May and it just brought up the month or something like that.
Yeah. And like, that's like, I don't know. For me, like part of the problem is like with this movie is like the movie itself maybe doesn't do the best job of explaining what exactly their idea is, like just like kind of in a clean, concise definition. But also I think part of it comes from like the fact that these guys don't really know what they're doing. I mean, there's that whole scene in early on where Tom like starts talking about like getting stuff on a CD-ROM and like talking about digital cameras, and then like it cuts to like Khalil and actually he's like, I don't want to talk about like digital cameras and shit. That's not what the site's about or whatever. Like
right. Yeah. Then they have that meeting where he's just like he's screaming about this in the office and he's trying to rip open a package and whatnot, and he calls up the guy and it's just like, yeah, we need to have a conversation about this because we're having different things that we're saying to different people and people aren't going to understand. And then he goes to the meeting and he's just like, so I called this meeting because we're kind of having different things. And the guy's just like, yeah, I don't think we need to talk about that anymore. He's like, okay. Just completely different type of guys once they're in a room or they're on the phone or whatever. So I thought that was interesting.
And also in relation to the people they have interpersonal relationships with who are either involved in the site or not involved in the site, because Khalil especially goes through multiple partners, I'm assuming. Like,
I think it's 2. Dora, who is working like with them, and then another girlfriend that we meet, but I don't know if we remember her name. I think she was the one that like he's like working on an email and whatnot. And she was just like really pissed off at him.
She's like, I'm about to leave you at one point.
And he's like, whatever. I'm writing an email.
And he does like a... Sorry, go ahead.
No, you, Bryden. You're fine.
No, I just thought it was funny how like kind of like he like Khalil almost ends up with like a joke. He's like, she's mad. Like, he's like playing it off, and I do like how she's introduced, where it's like, oh, I guess like his previous girlfriend just like wasn't working with him. Like, that relationship did not work out. I like how it's just kind of like she's a new girlfriend is abruptly introduced. I like that.
Yeah.
There's a weird thing where, I mean, Tom's parents we don't know. Well, we get to know both of their parents, but Khalil has that interesting scene where at first the girlfriend's talking to the camera about like, well, if he gets a dog and names the dog, maybe he'll have a better relationship with them because like, he's named the dog and stuff like that. And then it's
like, get out, get out.
And then it kind of cuts to Khalil talking to his mom, and we don't know what time it is either. And he's just kind of like, Mom, like, I don't know if I'm attracted to her or not. Like, it goes back and forth, but then like she's talking about like it's either a child or a dog, and I don't want either. And then the mom's like, well, why are you calling me at 1 a.m? I could have been sleeping. And then that's like, oh wow, this is all sorts of weird. Like,
the cut into that scene is so funny, where it's the girlfriend Dora talking about like, yeah, these guys are acting like grown-ups with their suits and everything, but the truth is they're not grown-ups. And then hard cut to like Khalil like lying on his bed. He's like, Mom, I'm in the zone. And it's it's so funny the way that's cut into.
So like maybe that is the thing, is that half of the time during this movie it was like, I don't know what they're talking about, and then most of the time they don't know what they're talking about, and nobody in their direct orbit, like familial or friendship wise, knows entirely what they're talking about, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. And just like I don't know, a lot of the comedy too just like comes from like the macho posturing. I love this scene where like whenever like they're lifting weights, like they're trying to like prove themselves to each other. There's that one guy who they're trying to buy the company, and Khalil's like saying like he's like lifting weights with this other guy, and he says like, I think maybe you should take a step outside yourself. I know that's not your style or whatever. Just like the passive aggression that like is coming through like in all these interactions, like that's the stuff that is a highlight for me, where it is like the stuck in a head well.
And even after like, I mean, we might be jumping a little bit ahead, but when you find out Tom leaves and then it like cuts to like him like, I need someone to to press me or something like that when he's bench pressing, and it has gone from like 200 people to like 50 or something.
Yeah. It's like 6 months later. Pause. Employees 50, which they've been keeping track of. Like it's like from 200 to 50. It's like, jeez, yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless of the strength of the idea itself in raising this capital, another initial problem they face is what they see as a non-commitment from the third partner, Khalil's friend. And in early 2000, they do manage to go live with their product to what seems to be a promising and lucrative future. However, the success of the business is fraught with many obstacles, including the competition, who may have a better product or one introduced into the marketplace earlier. The whims of the economy, especially as it concerns the equity market, and the fact that the business has few assets beyond intellectual capital. In addition, their personal focus is solely on the business, which places a strain on their personal relationships. Tom with his younger daughter, and Khalil with his girlfriend Dora. Their relationships with each other is also tested, as it is and always was an equitable one. Khalil being the self-admitted alpha dog, and one which may be usurped by business concerns. The people that have came in, yeah, the scenes with the competition, both of the competition were like, a guy comes in and it's just like, they're just like, oh man, I don't know if we really want to talk to you, or I don't know why you're doing this for us. He's like, I just like being nice. You guys don't know who I am, so I don't know why you're assuming that I'm here to be a shit. Like, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, the one guy like says like, "Where's the bug?" and he's like saying, "Oh, okay," and he's like compliments the hats and everything, just like trying so hard to be polite. It's so sad. Also, yeah, like with the Tom like sort of straining against like, the importance of the company, like juggling the importance of like the business and family. I mean, it's so weird when like they have the birthday celebration scene and it's like they're like applauding for the company, and then like they ask like, wait, Tom, I mean, how old are you? It's like 28. It's like, it's revealed, oh, this is his birthday celebration, but it's like tied in with like the company being celebrated. It's like, and like the company logos in the background. It's just like, I don't know if like I want to like be celebrating my birthday at work, like, or like having like that, like the work, the company's like importance overshadowing the fact that like I'm turning 28. Like that's not something I would want to happen. And like, but I don't know. I thought that was just like kind of a funny scene. But yeah.
Yeah, all of their celebrations feel very odd. Like, and then there's that one scene where Khalil is teaching everybody to say something in Spanish, and they're just like, okay, but use your hands a lot and really scream at it and whatnot. And he's like, all right, then go like this. And then the woman's just like, or I forget who says it, but the woman's just either a woman or Khalil's like, no, don't use the fist. That's a symbol for the Nazi party. We shouldn't do that. And I was like, is that a symbol for the Nazi party? A fist? I don't know. But yeah, it shows the fakeness behind all the celebrations, because literally there's a part where they have to amplify themselves of how excited they are for a website that isn't even made yet, and whenever it goes online is not actually working. So it's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry for jumping in and potentially having to force you to edit this, Kevin. Did we talk about the fact that they talked to Bill Clinton yet?
No. That's a funny cut to just a C-SPAN clip.
They talked to Bill Clinton before this thing?
Yeah, and like Khalil like offered him like a business card and said like, yeah, like, come to like, when you come to New York, you should get a job with us. And it's like, are you joking? Like, you hear like a lot of like laughter from like the reporter, and it's like, I can't tell if like this is something
he's not joking.
Yeah,
no.
It seems like a thing that he would
he's
say.
So confident. He's like, if Hillary wins, like he can come on over. I'm like, what the fuck? How did we get from where we are now to you meeting with Bill Clinton? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Oh, and it's really uncomfortable too when they showed the footage of that meeting where like Khalil was like saying like, oh, I'm sitting next to the dean of like this school that I was gonna go to but didn't end up going to, and you could hear Bill Clinton like just cackling, and it's like he laughs for so long. It's like, okay, you're laughing, like I'm like thinking, oh, that had to have like rubbed him the wrong way, like laughing at him basically for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a C-SPAN clip, and then there's a clip of Khalil on CNN, like CNN Business or something like that, which is like the most disoriented anything I could watch on television, where there's like 2 lines of ticker just of all the stocks just piling through. I'm like, how can anybody watch this? But yeah, the C-SPAN clip is pretty wild.
I also love the clip where it's a news report on the website. It's like, one website is pitching a way to keep the police at bay, sort of. And it just sort of like, like no one really knows what the concept of the website is. And that's like kind of a funny running joke throughout the whole thing, or just like a little joke that they have in there.
Oh yeah. There's a one clip where like a guy is just like, oh, I need to pay my something or another. It's like, you're not gonna wait for the website to launch to pay it on the actual website. And he's like, no. It's just like, it's like even they don't even have confidence in the website. It's just like, which makes sense once you go down the timeline of Khalil fucking frauding people and whatnot. It's just like, yeah, this is where he gets a start of like, I'm just gonna get $60 million and then whatever happens. Oh well. It's like even after it doesn't make any money, he's able to sell it off and still make millions.
Yeah.
Off of an idea that was never probably gonna happen to begin with, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't ever understand how anyone could just have the confidence to be like, I'm gonna leave my job at Goldman Sachs and then just do this half-baked thing. Not like I'd ever worked for Goldman Sachs in the first place, Jesus Christ. But it is kind of like, I will say I knew what the general premise was, and then when the movie started, it was like, I'm leaving here. I'm like, oh, well, he must have something under wraps. No.
Nope. And it's so funny because I doubt working at Goldman Sachs. He's just like, oh, I know about the internet. I'm gonna do this. It was just like, no, I have another thing that I can fuck around and make money and not care about what happens with it. That type of thing.
Well, that's the interesting. Yeah, I mean, Tom like talking about like, well, even if this doesn't work out, we still have like jobs like that we can go to and like families and everything. Like we could just move on to better things. And like Khalil's like, no, I need to win this. And it's like, oh, okay.
I guess my one issue I have, and I brought it up earlier, is just the daughter being there all the time. Tom's daughter being there all the time for kind of emotional manipulation in terms of documentary ethics. Like, she's always there when the plot serves it for defining his arc in terms of like, life is hard, and you will see throughout the documentary that my life is hard, therefore it must be perceived through my daughter's angst, whether it's combing her hair or not spending time with her, or even a pivotal scene in the third act where Tom has been let go and he's having the conversation with Khalil, like, I don't know why you wanted to shove me out. And then it's like, she's not even in the frame, but you hear her like getting upset.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about that really kind of irked me a little bit, I have to be honest. Like,
right.
Just in terms of like, no, we're not being a manipulative documentary. We're like showing exactly how the events played out. And it's like, well, why are you showing all the events where she happened to be in place for all the emotional beats that kind of just, like, she's a child. She doesn't really know what's going on, like, I don't know.
It's definitely that, and I guess it's the thing of like, oh, Khalil, we have conversations with his mom and his girlfriends and whatnot, but with Tom, it's just like, well, the only thing we got is his daughter. It's like, we got to put it in somewhere. And his parents, that's right.
And his parents, but you do, I liked that scene with his parents. I mean, it's very on the nose. I mean,
it literally spells out the theme of the movie. It's like business, so it's not as important as preserving relationships.
But like, where's his partner? Right. I mean, they don't even answer. Like, I mean, is his partner still with him? You mentioned, Bryden, you think
they only have 500 hours to deal with, Charlie. Like, I don't know what you want.
Yes, exactly. Where I'm just like, they had all this footage and they chose. I don't know. There's stuff about that where I'm just like, Tom's arc should be enough to convey that, and instead they hit all the beats with his daughter, who is not even the same ethnicity as him. That kind of made me go, I don't know. Like, that's...
No, I definitely get it.
It's a fair point. I honestly maybe I just haven't thought about it as much because like we only have like a few scenes with the kids, so like I didn't really think about it all that much. But I think now you mention it, going back over it in my mind, I think you bring up a valid point that like, yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's also the thing of you don't spend as much time with Tom. Like, Khalil is definitely the as this plot description says, the self-admitted alpha dog. So he's the one going on TV and the C-SPAN and CNN and whatnot, and he's the one that's kind of the face of the company, and then you're not seen as much as Tom. So it's like his entire arc is not as given as much weight. Do we have any final thoughts about startup.com?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Khalil Tisman comes off a little bit badly when like, I don't know how much money this movie costs to make, but like at the end he says like, hey, if I turn up the music on the radio, like that means you have to pay royalties for it, and they're like, yes, and then like he turns up the radio like at full. I'm thinking it's kind of an asshole move to like maybe you have to pay like thousands of dollars to pay for this Air song. Like, that's.
I got a few final. Yeah, it's enjoyable enough. It's definitely the time capsule of it all. Might be is saying that it's like kind of interesting and whatnot. Like if it was like a 2020 Netflix documentary about a Silicon Valley that came out today, a startup that didn't work, it would be like, who cares? That happens every day. But I think the added fact of even the documentary, if it came out then, if it came out in like 2000 instead of 2001 and didn't capture the dot-com bubble, or at least right in the middle of it, it would have just been kind of whatever fodder. But being that it does capture that, I feel like it's, you know, you don't really have any documentaries around the time that is following something that ends up capturing this moment at the same time, that I think is really cool. But if you're interested in early internet talk, and especially about the dot-com bubble, there's better documentaries, but also you can't kind of go wrong. It's pretty sure it's on YouTube, so check it out if you'd like. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Almost Major. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Please follow the pod on Twitter at Almost Major to keep up to date with what movies we will be covering in the future. Myself, I can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at KevBonesy. Bryden can be found on Twitter at Bryden Doyle and on Letterboxd at JDoyle. Charlie can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at CTNash91. Once again, thank you for listening.